And we are live here to chat about what we watched this week. I'm so excited to hear about everything, but primarily, I am so excited to hear Kate's thoughts on WandaVision because let me tell you, not less than 20 minutes ago, I finished the latest episode of WandaVision, episode 5. So, without further ado, Kate, how are you doing this week? And please, while I apply lip gloss, tell me all of your thoughts and theories. Just like jump right into it.
Okay, so I'm great. I am living my best life. I've had so much great entertainment this week. It's awesome. I have a entire humongous long list of theories, and I'm just gonna dive right in. Okay. So, big one that I think is probably just kind of split down the middle for everybody is I don't think it's Wanda, or at least I don't think it's mainly Wanda.
Okay.
Her powers
Interesting.
might be in she might be manipulated. It might be like directed through her powers, but I don't think she is the main instigator for this entire thing. I think it's shaped like this and it's formed like this, and it acts in her main desires because it's shaped subconsciously by what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple reasons I think this. Mainly, it's very clear that these are things that, like, the family dynamic, the kids, everything else. It's very clear to me that that's what she would have wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I say that as somebody who's never watched any of the movies with her in it, so just with that in mind. But I don't think she's lying, at least about like not being in control and not knowing what everybody's doing. I think there's a lot bigger thing at play here. Um, and I have a big thing. Also, with you just watching it, so a big red flag for that too. Also, is her looking so shocked when Pietro shows up. So I mean, that's my big one. That one's the first one coming in, and I expect that there's probably half of people probably think it's her all the way, and other half of people think more along the lines of what I'm thinking. The next one is I have a
Wait, can
big
I
theory about
interrupt?
who really is the big bad. Yes. I'm
Sorry,
like
we
running
timed
because
it
I
and
have
there's
so
a
much
two
to
and a half
say.
second delay. And that's why when I interrupt, I seem really rude. It's a combination of me interrupting and also there being a delay. Okay, so with her brother showing up, with Quicksilver showing up, it made me start to wonder why is it that she has a different code of ethics with like bringing Vision, the dog, and her brother back to life? Well, all three of them, it's slightly different. With the dog, it seems like she kind of considers bringing him back to life. That's the lowest stake death reversal. With Vision, she brought him back to life, but like we could kind of understand her going against her own morals with that because she loves Vision so much. However, and this is important, based on the movies, I strongly posit she loves her brother as much or more than Vision. I would go so far as to say more. Quicksilver and her are like this. Like one of the most impressive death mourning scenes I've ever seen is her screaming when he dies. Like this is not like I understand like a sibling relationship is always very close, but this is not like that. Like she and her twin are inseparable. They're like two halves of the same like, the closest sibling bond you could think of. So for me, I am kind of confused as to why she would bring back her love interest, although I love her with Vision, as opposed to her twin. It seems like she would be more like going crazy mentally over her brother.
So I actually have something about that. I
Okay.
think a big portion of what's I mean, kids always in TV a lot of times are used as a metaphor for like this is their happily ever after. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when they bring the kids in, and especially from the little I do know about her powers and her brother's powers and their relationship, it looks they are very much like a symbol of her second chance at restoring her childhood. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
she lost her parents at such a young age. She has emotional trauma from that. She did not process that grief properly. She grew up resentful of people, and it has caused trauma and mistakes in her life. I think that's why she doesn't want to teach them that that's how you fix that problem with the dog. That's
Mhm.
why she doesn't resurrect the dog if she has that power. I say if she has that power for a reason. I don't think she actually has that power because she seems super shocked when they say that, and not because like it's an atrocious recommendation, and it's more along the lines of she almost seems shocked as if it was a possibility. I think, I mean, it's really creepy depending on like how far we want to go with, is Jim really alive, or is he kind of a corpse just walking around because she's altered, like everything else is altered? There's a possibility he's still actually dead. This is some reincarnation, or I don't know. There's always other answers for who brought him back. I don't think she did it. I think it's either a manifestation of this reality she's created, or it's the works of somebody behind all of this,
One
who I
quick
think is
thing.
Hayward or Val.
Oh, sorry. I interrupted you just as you were about to name somebody. So I'm just saying, I see in the chat Carrie Johnson is joining us, saying, let the theoretical string theories begin. Hi, Carrie. I want to hear all of your theories regarding WandaVision as well. Kate, before I toss it back to you, tell me what you think of the idea that her kids are actually not real and that they are just visions, no pun intended, and or they are somehow communicating to her through like it's like Hydra communicating to her, whatever, trying to get her to use her powers to like do things she otherwise wouldn't normally do, like bring an actual human back from the dead, because Vision is not a human.
I have thought of this. It makes me, I don't want that to be true for her. I don't want that to be the reality, but it is a very big possibility in my mind that it's fake. The only big, I think, like textual evidence that would say they are real is when Monica comes out and says those are her kids, because they were trying to, they mentioned like doing a personnel check, and they're like, no, that's her kids. Now, obviously, there's some things that Monica, while still in there, didn't quite understand. So it's perfectly possible she doesn't understand that they're not real. They're an illusion, just like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But I I am personally going to stay in the happy place where they are real kids and it's not that dark or twisted and sad.
I'm wondering, okay, so thinking through the fact that they're moving through time. In the initial like episodes where it was like it was all in black and white, they hadn't moved to color yet, as you're seeing in the little thing on screen right now. We saw them being frequently kind of, I'll say, like forgetful and confused, and Wanda was forgetful and confused as well. It was low quality, it wasn't in Technicolor, whatever. And as they were originally hopping through the different sitcom genres, I was just thinking in terms of like what's fun to make, what would be fun to produce, what would be fun to write and direct, whatever. And I was thinking, like, oh, this is fun that they're kind of hopping through time, different genres for like no particular reason, just because, you know, it's fun to kind of like give a nod to all these old sitcoms. But then, and maybe this was obvious to everybody else, maybe this was obvious to you, let me know if so, I realized that we're basically going from like low quality to high quality. And I'm wondering if that's like Wanda getting more and more sucked into this delusion, or more and more powerful over her delusion, or whatever is creating this reality is getting better at creating this reality. Because as we're consistently moving forward in time, we're not just hopping around like, oh, here's 70s and then we're going to hop back to like a 1950s I love, like going from Dragnet to I Love Lucy or something. It's consistently moving forward. Are we trying to say that like this vision, no pun intended again, is getting stronger, such that it's coming out like suddenly it's strong enough to be in color, suddenly it's strong enough to be in, HQ, whatever? What are your thoughts on that?
I had a similar theory, especially considering what happens at the very end of episode two, where the color kind of rushes in. It's definitely more of like a metamorphosis kind of thing of her power, or whoever's doing this is power.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think also the detail that the farther along we get, there's more they're remembering. There's more that at least they're realizing they don't remember, both her and Vision. But she almost seems like the moment she like something else happens and she's no longer thinking about it, she's completely fine and forgotten about it. Whereas Vision is like he's constantly focused now on where are we, what is going on, what's happening. I think a lot of that actually has to do with, yet again, I think this is actually somebody messing with Wanda. I don't think, and whether he's real or not, I don't think their focus is necessarily convincing him. It's convincing her that this is real. So they are controlling her for whatever purpose, uh, and manipulating her perception of what their is. And because ours, it's just a manifesting in affecting how it looks and how it feels. But she's also forgetting things. Well, she's realizing she forgets things and she's losing control more often. There we go. But she is now, it's like this weird exchanging of awareness of what's really going on versus capacity to change it. It's kind of like they're doing this inverse thing.
Mm. That her
I don't
awareness
know.
is getting higher as her capacity to change it is getting lower.
Yes.
Okay. She seemed like
So, because things,
surprised that her powers didn't work on her kids, for example. She
yes.
seemed
And
originally she seemed befuddled about her environment in episode 1, but by the latest episode I just saw, she seemed kind of taken aback by her own powers. So I guess that backs up the theory you're saying, right?
yeah, as it's going along, it feels like she's more and more conscious that something's wrong. It's not to the level that Vision is because I think she's either trying to deny, she's in a state of denial, or it's something about how she's being controlled. But is having more and more moments of clarity. But her powers are becoming more and more unstable or uncontrollable. She can't do anything with it. Um, and then, like, you can even think about the promos that you've been seeing, and when they get into the 90s and the aughts styles, you can see she seems even more and more troubled and things start to go wrong. So like there's that whole thing, I guess the Malcolm in the Middle, maybe the Modern Family one, where it's like she's changing furniture and she seems so distressed by the fact that the furniture keeps changing. So it seems to me she's becoming more aware, and we're starting to like approach this point basically where she is fully aware and trapped. She can't get out because she's losing her power. She's losing her ability to manage her power. And I think it's somebody else manipulating her through this journey.
I will say, not to sound like my former heroic counterpart Martin, but I have actually watched no promos for WandaVision. So I do not know what the 90s and the aughts ones will look like. I'm familiar enough with what's going on to know that it will go into the 90s and so on, but I have not seen it. I didn't know exactly which one. In fact, when I was watching it over dinner just now with my husband, we were both trying to decide what like 90s family sitcom we thought it would be. And my guess was actually Home Improvement with Tim the Toolman. You know who I'm talking about? Because it follows that same family style. And in that, from my memory, because my memory is only going to cover late 90s, he had teen sons. Now, my husband said that when it started, they were still little, so maybe that's why it's not going to be that. But I was trying to think of like something late 90s that had like teen children in it, and that was what immediately came to mind. You said it's Malcolm in the Middle? I didn't actually watch that. I think that might be
Yeah.
earlier 90s.
Well, it's not obvious. It was more of just like how she was dressed just reminded me of that. But it was more of me just kind of think. Actually, to be honest, that one where I was thinking about the furniture change is probably more Modern Family than anything else.
Okay. So that would be
But
in the
yeah,
2000s, right?
from what I've noticed, yeah, that's the 2000s.
Okay. Looking in the chat, Carrie says, I'm not sure if Wanda's totally behind this altered reality or if it's someone else. My query is, why is it being broadcast? I know Darcy had to figure it out, but why leave any evidence of anything? Good question. And he adds on, going to the scene of Vision at the office, he brought the guy out of the fake reality. Did that guy specifically say Wanda was doing it to him, or did the guy just say she, meaning it's someone else? Ooh, that's a good catch. He didn't
I
say
got it.
Wanda. Take it away.
Okay. So with the whole why is it being broadcast? So I have kind of like you have to step back. So I have this theory about why Wanda took Vision's body in the first place. Two different theories. First of all, I think she was mind controlled. Well, okay, so she was either fearing that she clearly feared that they were going to use his body at Sword to turn him into a weapon, which is something clearly stated that he didn't want in his will. Okay. The other one, which kind of supports this question, is that she's being controlled to do so because let's be honest, for that little clip where we see her take Vision's body, it was extremely reckless tactics, basically. She was out in the open, cameras easily saw her, and I'm like, she's not a spy, but like, a little more discretion would have been just logic based, honestly. So that was weird to me. And then I got to thinking about Hayward has displayed knowledge of CMRB, which is C whatever, the way he about them, which is not like common knowledge. And I then started to tie that to my whole thought process of I think Agnes and her mystery husband Ralph are big keys into figuring out who it is. And wouldn't it be interesting if Hayward was husband Ralph, and what if husband Ralph was the guy that Jimmy was looking for, but they don't know because he can change bodies or whatever else? So husband Ralph is the whole reason we're here because we don't know who he was actually looking for. We haven't seen him either. And I mean, this reference is going to be a complete stretch. I just want to point it out. His name is Hayward, which sounds exactly like Hayward. Grant Ward, we hate him. Anyway, so, and then with the whole thought process of whoever, if it's Hayward as Ralph or just Ralph, the idea being teamed up with Agnes. Agnes has a really interesting relationship with Wanda using magic. So other people have actually seen them use magic only in episode 2 when
they did the magic show.
But they get to get away with it. Yeah, they get to get away with it because of the context. But in episode 5, she's using it in front of Agnes all the time. And the only time Agnes ever seems fazed by the magic is when she's mentioning that, or the kids mention that she can resurrect the dead, which leads me to believe that
Kate, you cut out. Hello? Hello? I don't know if you cut out for everybody else, but you cut out for me. I'm going to use this time while you cut out to piggyback off what you were saying about her not being startled. So one of the things, and maybe this is a little too meta, is I think that she was also one of the better side actors they had, or actresses, as it were. And I'm wondering if they plan for her to be a longer term position. Obviously, she showed up in a couple episodes, and a lot of times when you see somebody who seems to be just a side character, but they seem almost like OP in terms of casting, it's because they're intended to be something else. So it makes me wonder about that. Also, you're still frozen. Okay, it says that Kate left, so hopefully she is rejoining. There we go. Okay. So, as Kate is rejoining, I will also add, when it comes to this idea of like resurrecting the dead, it makes me wonder how this is tying into people coming back to life, some of the members of the team, their families coming back to life, they themselves coming back to life, whatever. Because we kind of saw that in episode 4, and I feel like that hasn't really been touched on since. I'm not sure how we like suddenly got that break from what I consider to be a extremely major plot point. Further, when we're talking about Vision, they made a point to mention that he explicitly did not want his body brought back to life specifically to be used as a weapon. Now, I don't recall from the movies exactly if that was pre-existing knowledge or if that was knowledge that we're introduced to for the first time here in this. Kate has temporarily disappeared. I will, in her place, put up this picture of Wanda. There we go. Okay, there you are, Kate. I will let you replace Wanda. Kate, can you hear me? 1, 2, 2.5. There's like a little bit of a delay before Kate gets here. Kate, let me know when you can hear me, because we can't hear you yet. Anyways, when it comes to Vision being brought back to life, it seemed interesting that they gave us a lot of information about him coming back to life. They mentioned that he didn't want his body brought back to life to be used as a weapon. Now, that's one piece more information than we actually need from his will. They could have just said he didn't want his body being brought back to life, full stop. But it gives Wanda an excuse for bringing him back or breaking him out of the mausoleum, as it were, because if somebody else was trying to get him and use his body as a weapon and she got him out in sort of a frantic attempt to protect him, that would then excuse her actions. And then because, as Kate said, it was reckless and whatever, it kind of indicates that they might have been in some kind of trouble. So that would be like right after she breaks him out, somebody else comes in and like captures both of them and puts them in this framework where their powers are being like fostered and built up, whatever. Thus us moving forward through time. We lost Kate again. Rip. Thus them moving forward through time and getting better and better, more proficient at their powers, which is translating to a stronger broadcast. But that then ties back into why it would be broadcast, other than the fact that obviously they need some way for like a modern team to figure it out that this is going on. We're going to get back to WandaVision, but I don't want to get too far into it without, okay, well, hold on, Kate's back. Kate, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, we can. I was about to jump into The Bachelor because, like, I didn't want to get too far into my WandaVision theories without you here. Okay, pick back right where you were.
Okay, what was I saying?
I'm gonna read what Carrie said in the chat as a way to refresh your memory. He said, did you say framework, getting Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. vibes? And then he said, oh no, Kate's cutout was like the ultimate tease. What was she going to say next? It did like cut right when you were about to say something about how it tied to it being broadcast, I think.
Oh, okay. So with Hayward, I mean, there was the whole thing about her being too obvious when she got Vision's body back. That was way too obvious that it was her. It seemed suspicious. And then you think about how Hayward much about the theory behind basically how Darcy could view it. I think that Hayward and his accomplices are trying to do something, but they want to think on Wanda. So basically, by making this virtual reality that is being broadcast, they have basically this evidence against her saying, well, look what she's doing. She's manipulating this whole town of people to get her to meet her ends. Of course it's her. Of course this is she's doing it. And because she already has that fraught history with the public of like uh, what I remember, this Sokovia Accords. If she was a big part of that, if I remember correctly, I didn't watch the movie, so I don't know. But I think that's what he's trying to do. I think Hayward or somebody he's working with is trying to use this to frame her.
She's definitely being framed, and that would explain, like, or okay, I would say, hold on. It's not that, and I'm hearing an echo. I'm not sure if it's on my end or yours. Let me know if I need to mute something on my end, or
Yeah.
like I have headphones in, but whatever.
Yeah.
She's being framed to us as the viewer. I don't know necessarily that she's being framed to the team. It makes sense what you're saying, but like to us as the viewer, it's definitely clear that we are meant to believe that she is in control here. In fact, I would say it was like after the second or third episode, my husband who I was watching it with was like, oh, she's absolutely the one in control here. Because like we were trying to decide whether it was her or Vision. And I was thinking maybe it was Vision and thus it's like the TV thing or whatever. And he thinks it's her. Now, we haven't revisited the idea of Vision being in control. But I don't know that he would be faking it in that office scene. So I guess not.
Yeah, I don't think it's Vision, and I don't think that I think that she has some influence, but I don't think it's she's the big bad. I think they're manipulating her in some way.
On the one hand, I don't want her to be the big bad because I want her to like have her happily ever after, and I don't want her to be like the villain that all of Sword and Shield and everybody goes up against. But on the other hand, I don't like the idea of her being portrayed as less powerful. So I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. And if I have to pick, I guess I would pick villain. But
I don't want her to be blindly portrayed as like, oh, a woman has grief, has loss, and immediately becomes bad guy. That is not something I want. It's not something I want for any character. It's not really complicated or interesting. It's kind of bland and boring. I would be willing to have like the anti-hero, like this person comes up to her and basically tells her like all like basically not mind control her, but almost like wear her down and like tell her this is how you fix it. And it is all her power, but she's not the one who came up with the idea. She's not the one who is using this as a way to do something sinister. It's just like her using it as a coping mechanism that she didn't come up with, but she was kind of pressured into using.
mm-hmm. I mean, her brother's dead. I'm definitely hearing an echo. I, I, I don't know who. I'm just gonna assume it's on my end. I don't know. No, you're fine. Her brother's dead. Otherwise, I would think that like if anybody would be able to have the power or hack the power to control her powers, it would maybe be him. Even though I don't think that's comic canon. Not that we paid attention to comic canon, anyways. I maybe part of me just doesn't want to believe that they really recast him because I don't like this new casting of him. So I want to believe that that's not really him and that maybe it's like a villain posing as her brother. I don't really know. But it didn't seem like she brought him there unless it's that they planted him in her mind by having her kids ask about him. And because he was planted in her mind, that's why he shows up. And we're going to go down a route of like any concept planted in her mind could potentially happen.
Yeah, well, and from just the accidental information I've seen on the internet, I do know that the guy that's like the recast is actually the Quicksilver from the X-Men series. So I think it is something about manipulation. Yeah, I don't think it's them recasting him because anything to do with the actor or anything to do with really Wanda. I think it has a lot to do with maybe this has something more to do with like the multiverse and like I know they're trying to connect the X-Men movies with the Marvel movies. So I think it's more to do with that, and it was just an easy way to bring in a new version of him to kind of mess with her mind. But it also kind of proves to the audience she's not fully in control here because she wouldn't have known who this guy is. She wouldn't have brought him in.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm ending with a shout out to Kat Dennings playing Felicity Smoke. What are you picking as your WandaVision's shout out since I selfishly claimed Felicity Smoke?
Oh, I don't know because there's so many things I still had left on my list to talk about.
Go through them.
Okay, so aerospace engineer could be fixed. Probably not, but could be. Um, why did Geraldine need a bucket if she didn't have a house? That actually could lead to a theory, but it's a
Ooh, good
detail I
question.
just wanted to know. Um, for 4 episodes, Agnes had a pendant, and it was very big and prominent, and it seemed like a detail. And then in episode 5, she didn't have it. Um, something about the framework, which is a lot about how I think maybe this could be like actually be working almost like a framework too. That's how people are living in it. Is they have some memory and they have some understanding of who they are as people, but not enough to understand. Well, I don't live in a sitcom. Why am I acting like I live in a sitcom kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Kind of like Matrixy.
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why, but I loved the fact that they used Voodoo Child at the end of episode 4. The Jimi Hendrix song was really on the nose and it was really funny. Um, and also, I've seen like some Twitter discussion about what the hexagon means, and obviously they actually talked about it in the show. I don't think it's like a metaphor for a spell. I think it's a metaphor for a honeycomb. I think it's going to be referring to her either being like the queen bee, being the center of all this, and it being more of a metaphor for like everything is revolving around her, everything twined with her history, her tragedy. Or I think it's more of like a reference to that it's under, think something like Shield's Hive or something like that. Okay, I think that was it.
Okay, hold on. Because go
I
back to
really
the
went
hex
through
thing. When
them.
I first heard the hex thing, hold on. When I first heard the hex thing, I originally thought Cisco and how Cisco is always naming things. And I was like, okay, so this is obviously some sort of like weird, like comic reference to something in the comics called the Hex, because Hex sounds like extremely comic y. Like that sounds like a comic book cheesy name for like a villain or a villain's cave, like the Bat Cave, but like the Hex, whatever. But when you were just saying it just now, I did not make this connection to just now. Granted, I didn't watch the episode until like 7:30 tonight Eastern. Hex is a shape that when you put many of them together builds a hive. Like a beehive is made of hexes, right? Am I crazy?
No, like yeah, I mean it's the honeycomb shape. You make a honeycomb out of hexagon.
So hive is involved. I mean, we knew hive or not hive. Hive. Wait, hive is not it. It's Hydra, right? Hive is
Well,
not a
yeah,
Marvel
there's
thing.
Hydra.
Is
Hive
hive
is
a
a Marvel
DC
thing.
thing?
It's just Hive. Well, there's both. There's the Hive, which was in Arrow, which is like Damien Dark, and
Oh,
then there's
that's right.
Hive from Shield, which was like the second character that like the creature from Mavis took control of the guy's body.
That's right. Okay. And they wouldn't be bringing that
Which
into this, would
mind
they?
control.
Yeah. Would they be bringing that into this?
I don't think they'll bring him back, but I think it's some reference to it's like it could be just a different version of him that they're bringing or something like that. I just don't think it's as simple as oh, it's a hexagon.
Mm. I mean, we've only ever seen, like, of the exterior of the town, we've only ever seen, like, that one spot. We haven't really seen them, like, go up and really see, like, how far to the sky does it go? Or, like, they attempted to tunnel under, which kind of worked, but we don't actually know, like, really how far down they went. or like how far around the town. Like I'm curious if we were to like pan out, as it were, like is it literally a hexagon? I don't know. Carrie in the chat says, I do hope we get an episode that fills the gap between Endgame and WandaVision. I feel like they were starting to do that with episode 4 and then didn't actually follow up on it with episode 5. And then he says, like, what did she do right after Tony's funeral to when we see her here? Yes, strongly agree. Like some kind of like flashback glue, I feel like would be helpful here. And I'm like the world's biggest hater of flashbacks. And even I'm with you on that.
Well, and especially since there's also a lot of subtle parallels that they're drawing between her grief and Monica's grief, they're gonna have to have some moment, a couple more moments talking about how Monica first reacted to her mom's death and why she came back so fast, and obviously why she got Vision's body and brought him back. When Monica first wakes up in episode 5, there's like a little, like, you see Wanda screaming or crying, and then you see Monica like screaming or whatever. I don't know if it's new footage or not. It's not anything I'd seen in the show, but it was something that maybe is suggesting we will see a moment talking more about their grief before the events of the show.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, while I do kind of buy into this theory that Wanda is not in control or not fully in control, we do have established at the end of the latest episode that she can move in and out of the hex of the town at will, and she retains her powers fully and easily and unfazed while doing so. So she is not being held hostage there. It's her husband and kids, however real they may be, and the previous residents of the town, who I don't care about, are being held hostage there. I only jokingly say I don't care about them, but like to a larger extent, I don't care that much about them because they did go out of their way to point out that no children are being held hostage in the town. Do you think that's a clue of some kind?
I think it's a suggestion because there's a mention of kids you can't control, and I wonder if it has to do with kids not having histories of trauma, and basically how they're controlling people's minds is feeding off of people's past traumas. Again, I'm going to mention something you currently haven't seen. There's no kids, so whether it's Wanda brings in the kids or whoever is responsible for the construction of the city now brings kids in. But I think they were originally not there because it's harder to control them because they don't have any trauma to give them access to the mind.
Okay, interesting. Well, Kate, we have 19 minutes left. Oh, Carrie says, also, need to know why Monica gave the screw face at the mention of Captain Marvel. I was wondering that too. And the fact that they even name dropped Captain Marvel like that made me wonder if she would even show up on this show. Sorry, I know we do have The Bachelor to talk about, and I know everybody's dying to hear about it. Just kidding. Nobody but me cares about it. But that's a really good point about Captain Marvel. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, and like you said about there's more to explore and give context to between the 3 weeks between Endgame and here. I think we're gonna have to figure out something about how, like, maybe Monica called Captain Marvel after Mom's dead and she doesn't help or anything like that. I don't know. I don't know enough about like but I don't see them bringing. Or well, I say that they might bring her in, but I don't think she'll be like a main character, a big plot point.
Yeah, we'll see. Do you know how many more episodes there are in this season?
I think there's 9 episodes, so I think there's 4 episodes left, which kind of makes sense. We're getting close to the end of how many eras of sitcoms, and every era we learn more and more about what's actually happening on the outside. So 4 sounds about right.
That makes sense. Okay. I'm going to do it. I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to put, oh, I didn't actually put any Bachelor images in my queue. Okay, I'm not going to put any Bachelor images on screen. I'm just going to take what was currently there off. And I'm going to do a really quick, I'm not even going to do like a recap or anything. I'm just going to do like some rapid fire opinions. And the thing is, I'm de facto right about them because you don't want to watch The Bachelor. So like it's just like I'm automatically right. Okay.
Okay,
Opinion? Say that
I
again.
will say I saw your tweet. I will say I saw your tweet about Tyra Banks, and I do actually have an opinion on that. But go ahead.
Ooh, share it. Go off.
Okay, so it's not really directly about Tyra Banks. I just think that I might actually be interested in watching the show if instead of it's like a weird, like a boring guy or anybody that hosts all these shows, at least for The Bachelorette, we need to have basically our own modern day Lady Danbury hosting the show. Like, give the matronly sass constantly, like, give the guys that are just acting a fool the side eye of a lifetime that I want. I might watch it then.
I love that idea. And I think, furthermore, if you truly had like a Lady Danbury type of situation on there, you could actually take the power fully away from both The Bachelor and The Bachelorette and have a host who is a matchmaker. The matchmaker sends them on dates. Bachelor and Bachelorette can have a say. Like the Bachelor Bachelorette can have like these sessions with the Lady Danbury, as it were, where they're saying like, oh yeah, I really like this guy, I really like this girl, or oh, I wasn't really feeling it, whatever. But ultimately it's the matchmaker who gets to decide who stays or goes until like the end when it gets to top three, and then the Bachelor, the Bachelorette can like pick from the top three. Does that make sense? What do you think of that idea?
That's that.
It sounds so good, especially depending on who the matchmaker is. Okay, so anyways, some opinions on The Bachelor. Um, So this week it started with a rose ceremony where a bunch of girls that we already knew that he like didn't like and wasn't feeling got eliminated, not the least of which were oh, Max Prime in the chat says I may have to give these Marvel shows a try, Cammie. I hope all is well. Max, you should give WandaVision a try. You should probably not give The Bachelor a try, which is what I'm about to talk about. And I don't think it fits within the Marvel framework, although, maybe. But highly recommend WandaVision and the moderately DC show that I'm going to talk about later, which is Riverdale. Okay, so The Bachelor, first of all, he's a bold-faced liar. And he's also kind of a lot younger than he tries to act like on the show, like off the show, like on his TikTok or whatever. He acts like he's 12 years old. In the bloopers, he acts like he's 12 years old. On the show, he acts like he's like 45 with a 401k, 5 kids, a mortgage, whatever. Anyways, because I think his real personality is like a lot less mature and a lot younger, and you see it come out sometimes, I think he wants like a young acting chill girl and like not any of the girls that are like actually ready for marriage. So he made a comment in this week's episode that literally set a light bulb above my head. They had a thing where his friend comes and visits him, and the whole thing is like his friend is a previous bachelor, and it's like his best friend. Okay, that's like how he got on the show, is he's the best friend of a previous bachelor. However, there are like previous bachelor contestant. However, that previous contestant did not get married, engaged, etc. out of this. Now that is critical because he makes a little throwaway comment and he says, I saw this process. I'm very hopeful. I think this will work out because I saw this process work out for my friend, Tyler. Now, I didn't watch Tyler's season, but I know for a fact that he did not actually get engaged. He did, however, get extremely popular on social media, got a bunch of sponsorships, got an ocean full of models, is couch surfing like a college dropout, traveling all over the world. And I just like, he was saying this, like the Bachelor, Matt was saying this in this moment where he was trying to seem so like positive about, like, yeah, I really feel like my wife is in this group of women or whatever. But then he goes and, like, in the process of saying he's hopeful and like he's really committed to this process, he really thinks he's gonna get engaged again, he goes and says, like, I trust this process, I've seen it work, I've seen it work for Tyler. You and I might have a different definition of success, buddy. Thus, automatically, I'm like, okay, all of the women I liked who I felt like were mature, whatever, ready for marriage, Maggie, Michelle, whatever, automatically those are going to be gone. Katie, gone, was gone this episode. So now my whole mindset has shifted. Now, I don't necessarily have a different front run. I certainly have, like, my front runner of who I think is a front runner for him. It does not necessarily reflect who I'm rooting for. Like, it doesn't reflect my tastes, as it were, necessarily. I don't dislike the front runner, but like whatever. But like front runners now, I'm like, okay, we're looking at Serena P. We're still looking at Rachel. Like, Jasenia is about to get a one-on-one date. I don't necessarily think she's a front runner, but I can see why she's about to get a one-on-one date. I don't think he's looking for a wife at all. I think he's looking for a chill, cool girl who can be his roommate and take hot Instagram pictures and not be mad when they like have a natural breakup in 6 to 12 months and won't pressure him to get married or have kids. And then he can ride off on his Bachelor fame. Like, this guy wants to be a TikTok star. He is not trying to get married right now, and he is completely looking for whichever girl's not trying to get married right now. So just know that. Okay, Bachelor rant over. We move on to a DC show, Riverdale. Now, are you aware of the current like Riverdale situation, Kate?
I'm aware that they've aged them all up and it's just as chaotic as ever.
Yes. Here's the thing. They kind of like just selectively chose what they wanted to do with the timeline. So, for example, you're seeing aged up Betty right now. I'll put up aged up Archie. So this is aged up Archie. I can't get over how bad and unnatural his red-haired eye looks. Okay. So they have aged up everybody 7 years. It's a 7-year flash forward. Okay. However, they graduated in 2020, 2021, whatever. In the flash forward, they're not actually flashing forward in time. They're like, it will be like they were 18 and now they're going to be like 25 or whatever, but they're going to be 25 in like 2021. And they asked the producers about this. They're like, why? And they were like, oh, like we didn't want to move like forward in time. So everybody's aging up 7 years, but we're not actually like moving forward in time. I was like, do you realize like how trippy that is though? Like, am I crazy? That's so weird. Like, all the fashions are going to stay the same. They're not going to like attempt to do like futuristic fashions or anything like that. Like, they're just older. And it's not like in a sci-fi way. It's just like in a blatantly ignoring continuity way.
Well, okay, from what I remember is they kind of flagrantly did not, like, they ignored them being in a time period, which is kind of part of its charm. You just watch where it is, and instead of just taking the logical, easy to follow, sensible writing style of just going for it, or 7 years ahead, like say they graduate college and now have jobs, instead they've made it more complicated and said, okay, it's the same year, but now they're all randomly 7 years older. Why? That makes no sense.
I think they're just like boldly leaning into this idea of like, we can do whatever we want. And so they will. And they're not even going to like try to explain it or be like, oh, like we're timeless. They're like, no, it was class of 2020 and now they're going to be 7 years older in 2021 is what it is. And the thing is, like, I just showed you Archie like in his little military uniform. So the original comics were like set in, I don't know, like 50, 60, something like that. And when he goes off to war or to join the military or whatever, like whatever military propaganda they've got going on with him, they show him going off in this bus that looks like so obviously vintage. Like it is extremely vintage. Like it looks like I don't know my vintage cars, but it looks like a 1960s type of situation, right? Maybe late 60s. I don't know. So they could have really leaned into this idea of like we're just not defining what year it is. But no, they like absolutely define what year it is. It's I don't, but I'm very excited to see these people be older. I'm very excited about possibilities with Betty and Archie. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I know everybody's pro Betty and Jughead. I feel like they had their time, served their purpose. I liked them for what they were. I'm ready for Betty and Archie. Come at me, sticks and stones will do nothing to me. I'm old and already fought all these fights. Thank you so much for your feedback. In the words of the great philosopher Katie, our next bachelorette. Okay, I have a show I want to pitch to you, but first I want to dive into the What Kate Read segment because I know you did some reading this week. So I am taking
Yes.
military propaganda off the screen and tossing it over to you.
So I finished reading books 4 and 5 of the Anne of Green Gables. So it was Anne of Poison. I thought Windy Poplars was great. It was cute. It was a little bland comparatively speaking to the book before it. I'll admit it. It was fun, and it had some really interesting dynamics with that girl Catherine. And it explored how Anne, in her personality and her goodness, has stayed genuinely the same throughout the books. But she has matured and she has learned to take things not. It's not necessarily that she took things personally for a long time, but she has learned that some people are going to be the way they're going to be, and you can only help them for so long before you have to help yourself and just let them be miserable. So she she has she kind of displays that way, and then she actually ends up developing a really cute friendship with Catherine. And then in House of Dreams, we take a sharp right turn, and it is all romance all the time. And it is the most dramatic thing. Also, the writing style has changed because in the earlier books, the romanticism is very much centered just in the dialogue. There's not romanticism in this, not extreme romanticism in the metaphors and the illusions they're drawing in the settings. I mean, every single sentence felt like a mess. I mean, when they talk about she gave birth to Jim, they're like, they didn't say she's pregnant. They're like, a stork flew in, and then we have a tiny little visitor. I'm like, what? That's how you're gonna tell me that? Okay. It's so funny. It's cute. It's heartbreaking. I loved it. That was my fifth one. Was my favorite one so far.
I love how much it is clear evidence against the moonlighting curse because they're together doesn't mean the
Oh yeah.
romance goes away at all.
Honestly, we've discussed a lot of shows that really prove that the Moonlighting Curse is garbage because we like quality. And if there are really great writers writing really quality television, they can deal with a happy, healthy married couple dealing with, we don't say realistic because Shield, but like problems, and it not necessarily be drama between themselves, just be drama of life.
Absolutely. I think it's just because, okay, so not to sound like heartless towards like writers with bad lives, if that's like a stereotype, I don't know. But I feel like just because somebody doesn't have either the real life experience or the writing experience, writing like a healthy couple, seeing a healthy couple, being in a healthy couple, whatever, does not mean that all of us need to be perpetually miserable watching literally everything on television because zero healthy couples exist. Looking at you, Miss Scarlet and the Duke. I'll just throw a little plug for that. I don't think I have a picture up for that this week, but I caught up on that. And let me tell you my distress while watching it, knowing what you said, that they are not going to end up together. Like, the sheer anger I felt. Like I shipped them before, but it was like, oh, I shipped them,
Oh
but like
yeah,
against my better judgment. But knowing they're not going to be together now, I'm like, I'm ready to fight.
I know. And then episode 4, I mean, episode 4, he came in guns blazing, his regular jerk self, and it's a real character growth. Like the week after, I was like, okay, dude, get it together. I spoke it into existence. That's really how I'm going to take that. I
Yes,
mean, I think episode 4 was the best episode so far. The
agreed.
mystery wasn't completely obvious. The character development on both sides was massively better than they've been doing for the past 3 episodes. I don't know where the rest of the show is going. There's only 2 episodes left this season,
Did you see the
so
promo
we'll
for the
see what
next
happens.
episode? We're going to have like a him
I
rescuing her kind of trope.
Yes, I remember that. I saw that like she gets trapped for some reason, probably to do with whatever was on the wall, and then he kicks down a door, and I'm like there's some problematic stuff going on here, but I feel like if I could admit it, I could acknowledge it, I get to enjoy the fruits of that labor.
Right. I'll enjoy a problematic ship every day on Twice on Sunday. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Like, I like my healthy ships together. I like my problematic ships together. Like, I want the full spectrum. So it's the same thing as before. Like, let me not, first of all, I like villains. So I don't need all my characters to be perfect right off the bat. Anyways, certainly don't need all my women to be perfect. Miss Scarlet is not perfect. And sometimes she's slightly, like, not to overuse the word toxic, but to sound like Gen Z, like, no offense, like she's toxic, sometimes as well, as is her male counterpart, as is pretty much everybody on the show. They are all flawed. They are all like problematic, whatever. There's a difference between problematic, where like she makes mistakes, occasionally disrespects people, is not like some perfect little wifey, and problematic as in she's like a villainous killing people, whatever, which is also fine in my book, but like, like in my fictional book. But anyways, I really want them together. I'm really mad that they're not going to be. And because I'm an obstinate person, the fact that I know that they're not going to be is making me ship them even more. So maybe they got what they wanted.
Maybe there's going to be season 2 and they fix that problem. I don't know.
I hope so. It was so good. Okay, I'm going to pitch a show to you.
Okay.
I'm going to do it very quickly, though, because we're almost out of time. Lupin is a show that I watched this week on Netflix. I marathoned it very quickly. It's only 5 episodes. I think it might be like an event season or something like that. It is about I'm not going to give like plot information. Basically, it's like a slice of life show. If a slice of life show was about a like master of disguise, jewel thief, like super professional con artist thief person, and they have a wife and family, and they are very like interesting of a character, but it's like this little slice of their life, and you have some flashbacks to different parts of whatever, but like it's almost like the plot doesn't matter. It's like in a genre like a heist genre where it's usually all plot, like it's all like, oh, we are going to break into this casino and steal jewels, or we are going to, I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence, whatever. It's these genres that are often like extremely plot focused, of like this team gets together and does this. It's like they took that and they made it slice of life, and it's fun and it's romantic. It was made in French, but I watched it subbed in English or dubbed in English. So like there were like English voice actors over it. It was very good, like very seamless, did not bother me at all. If you like watching things in French, you can also do that. I considered watching it in French and doing the English subtitles, but I watched it dubbed so that I could do other things while listening. It was great. Highly recommend.
Okay. Well, then I'll recommend. I haven't finished watching it, but I've started watching the movie Dig. It's very much like a historical, just kind of a based on true events history retelling, but it's very interesting. and Carrie Mulligan is in it, and she just
Mhm.
kills it all the time, every time, all the time. There's Johnny Flynn is in it. That's the guy that plays Knightley from the newest Emma. Love him. And Lily James is in it. From every other uh, period drama we've talked about before. So it's pretty good. I haven't finished watching it yet. It's kind of slow, and it's very like and it's interesting, and it talks a lot about the time going into World War II and archaeology and the implications of what they're finding and the implications of rights of like they're fighting a lot about who gets basically credit for
Mhm.
finding this. She gets credit for it because she owns the land. That's a shoo-in. But the guy that the actual excavator that actually does it actually in a very academic idea.
That sounds really interesting. I'm going to add that to my list. Sorry, I know we're kind of having some audio issues there. I will skip ish for this week any major talk about This Is Us. I will only say that Beth and Randall were the stars of this week. And spoiler, Kevin doesn't actually get in a car accident or die, and he tries to use his actor privilege to get past TSA. I can't. I literally, I just and I will also skip Zoe's playlist for this week. I will say I expressed some concerns last week that they were attempting to do a story about racial injustice and kind of centering it around the reactions of a white character. This week, they really did a great job, in my opinion. It was not centered around her, it was centered around the characters of color that they had. I was really pleased with how it was done. Obviously, it's a short comedy, so it's not like they can tackle the whole issue and like cure racism in one episode or whatever, but I thought it was really well done. So I'll walk back my concern a little bit. Imperfect, but still good. Credit where credit's due. And again, this is all part of, I guess, sort of my mindset for this week is just to try to or like what I've been realizing based on some of the, I guess, social stuff I've been seeing going around this week, particularly in the entertainment industry, is just to kind of try to differentiate between like saying something is problematic because it's like this is severely racist, sexist, hurtful, breaking the law, like a civil rights crime, and saying something is like problematic where it's just like, oh, this is slightly annoying, or oh, I wish they'd cast a woman for this instead of a man, or something like that. I'm trying to like have more of a scale mindset than this dichotomous canceled or not mindset. So that's what we're taking into 2021. That's what I'm taking into 2021. Okay. Well, same time, same place next week. I'm excited to watch The Dig. And if you want to chat with us on social media, our information is in the description down below. Thank you, Max and Carrie, and everybody else for watching. Drop a comment with your WandaVision theory if you are watching this after the fact.